Athens here with the Hudson Athens Lighthouse Preservation Society. We're so excited to have the Preservation League of New York State on board with us today doing a Facebook Live video walkthrough of the lighthouse. So hopefully we'll have the chance today to make our way through all the living quarters on board, all the way up to the top of the tower. So stay tuned with us and hopefully you'll get some great views of the Catskills in about 5 or 10 minutes here. So why don't we start walking up the ramp here. Just take your time, watch your steps. Thank you very much for the grant, this year's cycle for the 7 to Save, the Preservation League of New York. Let's head right this way. So we're standing now on the limestone pedestal upon which the structure itself of the Hudson Athens Lighthouse stands. This pedestal, the limestone structure itself, rests on top of about 175 wooden pilings which were driven down into the floor of the Hudson River in 1872 when the lighthouse was they began construction of it. The structure was completed in 1874 and was a manned light station up until the end of World War II, at which point it was all automated and the lightkeeper who was stationed in Athens would come out occasionally to check on the functioning of all the equipment on board. Now, while we're standing on the limestone pedestal here for the lighthouse, you'll notice the shape of this end of the lighthouse. It's kind of like the bow of a ship, actually. There's a point as it looks north. The entire design of this structure, when you stick a building like this out in the elements year-round in the middle of the Hudson, you have to make accommodations, particularly for the harsh winters out here. So they, in the 1870s, rather novel idea, they created this ship's prow on the end of the lighthouse to break up ice as it moved out in the spring thaws. So as we look around, keep in mind a lot of what we're seeing, even right down to the way that the water was collected off of the top of the lighthouse during rainstorms, water for the family. The lighthouse is meant to be self-sustaining, substantially built, and meant to weather all kinds of tripping over the towers. So we'll step right into the living quarters here. Entering the kitchen, which right now we have all of our monthly tour equipment broken down here, but this was kind of the heart of the home of the lighthouse for the lightkeeper and their family when they were living out here, and a lot of the things you see are equipment that was left over from the 30s when the lighthouse was still a live-aboard structure. Exhibit material, United States Lighthouse Service, later the United States Coast Guard, memorial plaque to the last lightkeeper who, with his family, lived on board the lighthouse in the 30s into the 40s. Dearly departed volunteer Emily Brunner, who lived on the lighthouse as a young girl and spent the rest of her life right across the water here in Athens. The lighthouse is privately owned and maintained now by the Hudson Athens Lighthouse Preservation Society. It was originally owned and maintained by the federal government. The Coast Guard were the last owners of the structure prior to us. And the last piece of government-owned equipment, which we'll see at the end of the tour, is a small green beacon, which is a navigational aid, because the lighthouse structure itself still supports a navigation aid for the channel for commercial shipping here on the Hudson River. The rest of the building, though, is owned and maintained by us. We're next to an earlier form of that government-owned light. This is a Fresnel lens, which is the kind of beacon that the lighthouse was originally equipped with. Rather than an electric bulb, it would have had a kerosene lantern in it to create the light source that allowed shipping to navigate around a sandbar, which was just north of us, which over the years has been built up into an actual island complete with trees. We'll see that from the tower. I'm going to head up the first flight of stairs here. Just sneak through some of the living quarters here. Now, before anybody balks at the paint and things like that, because the lighthouse doesn't have heat year-round anymore, the plaster starts to flake, some of the paint flakes off, and this is something that we try to stay ahead of year by year. It's one of the things that our organization is always trying to raise revenue to accomplish. Staying on top of maintaining a 150-year-old building is a difficult prospect. This is one of the bedrooms where we've got some images of some of the examples of commercial shipping, Hudson River day line vessels that used to pass by the lighthouse day by day all through the end of the 19th and early 20th centuries. We also have actually a fun poster here. The Hudson Athens Lighthouse is the last and northernmost of 7 remaining lighthouses on the Hudson River. There used to be, I believe it was 13 lighthouses on the river, but somebody who's an expert on lighthouses can correct me. There used to be 2 more north of us, which are both gone now. Right. Now for the part everybody always wants to get to right away is going up into the tower. Get a shot of the cast iron staircase here, but on our way up I'm also going to point out a strange looking piece of equipment. It's another one of these things that kind of punctuated the life and daily routine of somebody living on board a lighthouse in the Hudson River. As a lightkeeper, the lightkeeper wasn't just responsible for making sure that the kerosene lantern or electric bulb in the tower was lit as a navigation aid. If there was fog on the river, which is frequent when the weather's right all summer long, you'd be cranking up and using a fog bell whenever that fog rolled in. So this clockwork mechanism here, which has changed with counterweights to drop down all the way to the bottom floor where we started, this counterweight system is just meant to actuate a hammer right over here that, based on the winding of the clockwork, will strike this bell hanging outside the tower on a regular routine. Now, imagine living out here, your bedroom is just down around the staircase there, and there's fog, 3 in the morning, and the lightkeeper needs to get up, crank this thing up, and set it off, because if a ship or a tug is coming by in the fog, they can't see that light. They might need to listen for the bell. Now we're going to head right up. So we're in the tower now. It's rather warm. And in stark contrast to that Fresnel lens we saw downstairs, we have this new Coast Guard issued green beacon, which you can see as far down as the bend in the river and as far north as the trees will allow you to see without obstruction. I'm going to step out. And now we're at the top of the tower, so this is where the most important functions of the Hudson Athens Lighthouse have occurred since it was built in the 1870s. This beacon, which has been constantly lit since that time, has helped ships navigate up and down the Hudson for 150 years. The whole point of the lighthouse's construction is actually that island you can see straight out. It looks like the shoreline, but there's actually a channel up the Hudson side, and this channel straight up the Athens side of the river, going north and south. This mile-long island that you see called Middle Ground Flats which was originally a sandbar, a shallow obstruction on the bottom of the river, was a menace to shipping for the earliest years of industrial commerce on the Hudson River in the 19th century. So the residents of Athens and Hudson petitioned the government to put up this lighthouse in the 1860s. It was completed in 1874, and it's been protecting shipping from that island ever since. Now, you can also really get a good view of that bow shape of the pedestal of the lighthouse as well from up here. It was so great having you all on board with us today. Thank you to the Preservation League of New York State for coming out to do this Facebook Live video, and we hope to see you all on a visit out here. Second Saturday of every month in the summer, you can come out for a tour, and currently the City of Hudson is doing Waterfront Wednesday events where you can also come down on a Wednesday night and get a ride out here to see the lighthouse for yourself. Feel free to follow us on Instagram at Hudson Athens Lighthouse. We're also on Facebook. You can search Hudson Athens Lighthouse on there, or you can visit our website, hudsonathenlighthouse.org. Thanks so much.